Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, let me extend to you a very warm welcome. If you're interested in the topic of early Christian or other spiritual thought and the groups that evolved over history, the ways that people's various religions developed, this is the channel for you, and I hope you'll subscribe, leave your comments and questions, and I'll try to answer them. As always, I'll leave links to things that I might think are helpful to you in expanding on the subjects. Well, today I'm going to be talking about the apocalypse of Abraham. This is another example of Jewish apocalyptic writing. It's divided into two sections, and I'll probably do the first section today, then leave a link to another video for the second part. The first is the story of how Abraham came to reject the gods of his father Terah and believe in the one true creator God. The second section is the apocalyptic section, where Abraham is going to be taken by an angel to the higher realms, the spiritual realms, to see the future of his people. The writing is an expansion on the call of Abram that we find in the first couple of verses of Genesis chapter 12 in the Hebrew scriptures, and his vision experience that we find in Genesis chapter 15. This apocalypse was written in Aramaic and or Hebrew following the destruction of the Jerusalem temple in 70 CE. It was probably written between then and possibly at the latest the year 100 CE. Later, it was translated into Greek and continued to travel through the Byzantine Empire and later ended up in Russia. The text was found among ancient writings in the monastery of Alexander Nevsky in St. Petersburg, Russia. This was the only copy discovered. It's a 14th century manuscript in the Old Church Slavonic language. No text was preserved in the various Jewish communities who saved various texts, and therefore we owe its survival to the Eastern Orthodox Church. The events of Jewish history in response to the destruction of the Jewish temple are told here after their occurrence in the form of an apocalyptic prophecy. This is a pseudographic writing, and pseudonymous writing is one that is written in the name of a well-known ancient person, and this gives the writing a sense of authenticity, and it makes it able to make prophetic pronouncements that it contains seem probable. These are forgeries, obviously, and they are common in apocalyptic literature and many of the other writings of the time from approximately 200 BCE to about 200 CE. When I first read the beginnings of the Apocalypse of Abraham, I thought they were quite amusing, but I wasn't sure if I was projecting a 21st century understanding of the worship of idols into an ancient text. Well, after study, I learned that the names of the gods used are quite ironic. and they reflect the Hebrew writer's use of puns and humor to make a point. In addition, they're one of the strongest proofs, or I should say probabilities, that we have that this is in fact a Semitic writing and is not a Greek or a Christian writing, because these names only in the original Hebrew are humorous puns. So the apocalypse begins with Abraham taking care of his father's gods, the gods of his father and his brother Nahor. And he's already having some reservation about the power of these gods, and he was attempting to find out which one was the strongest. Well, the first thing that happened was that he found one of the gods named Merimoth had fallen over, and he was too heavy to lift on his own. So he called his father, and together they attempted to stand this god up. But what, of course, happens is that in this process, the god's head falls off. So Abraham's father decides that he needs to construct another god of Merimoth. Well, this word from the Hebrew means stone of deceit or deception, and it can also mean Lord of the nation. And the fact that the Apocalypse of Abraham describes the idol as having its head and its body made out of two different stones may be a reflection of a common practice for statues of the Roman emperors. The Roman emperor Suetonius had made a decree which read this way. He began from that time on to claim to divine majesty, for after giving orders that the statues of the gods, as were especially famous for their sanctity and their artistic merit, including that of Jupiter of Olympia, should be brought from Greece in order to remove their heads and put his own in their place. And so here we have this god, Merimoth, has fallen in his temple. In the process of putting his back, his head comes off. So Terah fashions a new body and places a head on it. Now, can this be a reference to the emperor of Rome being a false god or an idol? Now, the reflection here of the futility of the idols is even more ironic if we accept that idea that he was referring to the emperor, the lord of the nation. Now, if it just means deception or a stone that deceives, then it would reflect the scriptural understanding regarding idols. It would be the fact that idols are not gods and they don't have any kind of real power. And Abraham attempts to convince his father, Terah, of this. But Terah's not buying any of it. He puts his trust in these idols. Abraham says, you create these idols. They should be thankful to you. They should worship you and not the other way around. You are the God. You're the creator of these gods. Well, the text goes on, and another thing that happens is that Abraham's father makes 5 idols, and sends him off to attempt to sell them. And in discussion with a traveling caravan, Abraham is speaking to these travelers, and one of the camels is startled, makes a noise, and Abraham's idols that he's trying to sell fall to the ground, and 3 of them are broken. Camel drivers are interested in purchasing the other gods that he has left, and they do so. And Abraham takes the 3 gods that have now been broken, and he throws them into the river, and he watches them sink. He takes his money and he goes back to his father, who tells him he's done a wonderful job and that he's been blessed by the gods because he was able to get money for these carved idols. And Abraham tries again to explain. 3 of them were broken, and I threw them in the river, and they sank to the bottom. They had no power to help or to save themselves. They are not real gods. And it is because of my skill in selling the gods and bargaining with these camel drivers that we've been blessed. It is nothing that these gods of wood have done. Well, we've seen the irony in the name of the first god and the second group of gods sinking in the river. But there is another incident that is recorded here in the Apocalypse of Abraham. It's really quite ironic. The father Terah yells, Abraham. Now I'm quoting from chapter 5 of the Apocalypse. And I said, here I am. And he said, up, gather wood chips, for I am making gods from fir before you came, and prepare with them food for my midday meal. And it came to pass, when I had chosen the wooden chips, I found among them a small god which would fit in my left hand, and on its forehead was written God Bereset. That is the God's name. And it came to pass, when I put the chips on the fire in order to prepare the food for my father, and going out to inquire about the food, I put Bereset near the enkindled fire, saying to him threateningly, Bereset, watch that the fire does not go out before I come back. If the fire goes out, blow on it so that it flares up. And I went out, and I made my counsel. When I returned, Bereset had fallen on his back, his feet enveloped by fire and burning fiercely. And it came to pass, when I saw it, I laughed and said to myself, Bereset, truly you know how to light a fire and to cook food. And it came to pass, while saying this in my laughter, I saw he burned up slowly from the fire and became ashes. So then Abraham takes the food to his father to eat, and as he's eating, Terah blessed Meramath, his god. And I said, Father Terah, don't bless the god Meramath. Do not praise him. Praise rather Bereset, your god, because as though loving you, he threw himself into the fire in order to cook your food. And he said to me, then where is he now? And I said, well, he burned in the fierceness of the fire and became dust. And he said, great is the power of Bereset. I will make another today, and tomorrow he will prepare my food. Well, it's clear that the name of this god, which is mentioned several times, in this incident is important. And this is the name of the fire god of the pagans. This narrative is one of the main examples of ancient Jewish intellectual satire, and it functions to ridicule an enemy. Here, the enemy is idolatry, with a possible reference to the enemy also being the Roman emperor. The people of God have, in the past, believed that they were punished because they had fallen away from worship of the one true God into idolatry. And in the second part of this apocalypse, we're going to see a more serious look at the history of the Jewish people and the effect of idolatry on them in the form of punishments by their God. Now, Abraham here goes on to continue his thinking in a more intellectual manner, in that he thinks about the elements of the earth. He thinks about the fire, of water, the earth itself, and the sun. And he is coming clearly to the conclusion that not only is the Creator God more powerful than these wooden and stone and metal idols of his father, but that also is more powerful than the elements of the earth. I'm going to go quickly to chapter 8 because this is where we have the introduction of the voice of God. And this voice comes as a stream of fire. And I wonder if that isn't a connect link with the fire god that has just been used in satire to show the foolishness of worshiping idols. But as Abraham is thinking about these things, the voice of a mighty one came down from the heavens in a stream of fire, saying, Abraham, Abraham, you're searching for the God of gods, the Creator, in the understanding of your heart. And Abraham is going to be honored and blessed for this. I am he. Get out from Terah your father, and get out of the house, so that you will not be slain for the sins of your father's house. And it came to pass, as Abraham escaped from the house, he was just outside the entrance of the court, when the sound of a great thunder came and burned his father Terah and his house and everything in his house down to the ground 40 cubits. So here again we see the almost immediate and certainly disastrous result of holding on to idol worship. And so we'll continue this next time as we look now at the journey that Abraham takes with the angel sent by the Creator God to show him the future of his people. So I hope you're able to join with me then. I want to thank you for being here this time and for your support, and invite you once again to subscribe to the channel and leave your comments and your questions. I'm trying to gather together a group of people interested in these topics so that we as a group can discuss them further.